Today I'm going to show you how to make sauerkraut. My recipe is a slight adaptation from Sally Fallon's in Nourishing Traditions. This recipe can be made with any cabbage, but I would recommend the rounder ones, not the Napa cabbage. I use Napa cabbage normally to make kimchi. First you want to remove all the outer stickier leaves. So the little bit wilted leaves, you want to get rid of them. Okay, now you want to core it. Find the longest knife in your house, put the cabbage upside down, and start cutting exactly in the middle of the core. So right there, get it going a little bit, and then you push it all the way through. I would not recommend doing this on a glass top stove, so let me just move it over here. All the way through. Alright. Now you want to cut out that core piece. So you put it in right there. And cut a little pyramid out of it, like that. Excellent. And we can compost these things. Okay, so let me just show you how thin you want to slice it if you're actually going to cut it with a knife. So you want to start really small and start basically shredding the cabbage as thin as possible. Now we have some nice awesome kitchen equipment. We have food processor, so you can just stick it through the food processor. I'd like to get a couple of pieces going. Alright, so then we're going to take it through the food processor. So all the purple cabbage have been shredded, and I actually like to, now in olden days, you'd have to get out a mallet and get the cabbage and start pounding the cabbage until the cellulose walls have broken a little bit. But what I do instead is I freeze it. So there's a couple of different ways you can put it in the freezer. I buy some freezer paper. And I love parchment paper. I actually use it a lot in my cooking, and I try to buy a really high quality parchment paper that doesn't have a bunch of bad things in it. And so we got a little setup over here. Alright. Now wrap this up like it's a little present. Okay, so I like to take the long two pieces and put it together and roll it. Just like a little cabbage present. And you can make a whole bunch of them and stack them up in your freezer when it's cabbage time, and you'll have some year round to use as you need. Squeeze out all the air, and then you can stack that in the freezer. You just want to be really mindful about the amount of plastic that you expose your family to. Another option. When this all comes out of the freezer, so now this bag comes out of the freezer, and you open it up. I would recommend whenever you defrost it to always defrost it in some sort of bowl. It's nice and wilted. Alright, into this bowl now we're going to add the rest of the ingredients. So we want to add salt. if I'm going to use a culture, and when I say culture, is using whey. So I have a video on showing you how to render whey, but this is the culture we're going to use. So I'm just going to use 1 tablespoon of salt. If you're not going to use whey in your recipe, you're going to have to use 2 tablespoons of salt, because it helps preserve it. It's one of the benefits of using whey. So 1 tablespoon of salt for 1 head of cabbage, and 4 tablespoons of whey. Actually, maybe not even put that on there. 1, 2, 3, 4 tablespoons of whey. And then this is optional. You don't have to add it. I like caraway seeds. It adds a really great flavor to the sauerkraut. That's what the little spice looks like. And I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of that. I'd like to keep my little measuring spoon dry. And then we're going to just work this through in here. And so what the salts are going to do, the salts are going to release all the juices out of the kraut, and all the cellular walls of the cabbage have now been broken with the freezer. So you can just immediately see all that juices that form in there. So the next thing we want to do is we want to jar this. But I'm kind of messy, and I sometimes spill some kraut on the surface that I'm working on. And if you didn't clean the surface that you're working on really well, then I wouldn't recommend putting the kraut back into the jars. So what I do is I clean up this space with a little bit of apple cider vinegar, kombucha vinegar. Alright. So I have a couple of different ways, jars that you can ferment in. You can get a fancy crock, and you can make it in a crock. But I have just found this to be the simplest method. If I have to pick certain implements to be in my kitchen, these are the most versatile pieces of equipment that you can have in your kitchen for fermenting or for storing things or whatever. Now, here's a couple of different kinds too. So you have a narrow mouth mason jar, and this is a wide mouth mason jar. These two are the same size. When it comes to fermentation, you have to be able to keep the cabbage underneath the liquid submerged the whole time. And you can buy a little fermentation weight to keep that down, but for some reason when there's a little bit of a neck like this, somehow some of the food bypasses the little weight, because the weight is smaller than this surface right here, doesn't quite hold all the vegetables down. So you can buy smaller fermentation weights that fit these jars, but they actually fit these jars the best. So it's almost exactly the same as these. This is half the size. And then we have 2 different fermentation weights too. So I buy these little fermentation weights, pickled pebbles. So I would put the sauerkraut in there, and then see that fits very nicely in there. So if I'm going to ferment in a very small jar, I'm going to use this little fermentation weight like this. But I keep larger fermentation weights for these jars. So then you have this fermentation weight, and it fits perfectly in there, keeps all the kraut underneath it, and the liquid is on top of the stone, or on top of the glass stone. And we're going to put this kraut in here. Now you have to make sure that before you start touching this, your hands are clean. I'm not saying go wash yourself with antibacterial soap, just soap and water will do. So I'm quickly going to do that. Alright. So we're going to add these to the jars. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these fermentation weights to the kraut right now, like that. Okay, now I can push I could put each and every one of them, and you can see how the juices come up over that. When I mix a brine for all of my different ferments, so if I wanted to top off this with some more water, I was going to use a brine, and the brine is 1 liter of water with 2 tablespoons of salt. So I've mixed this one already, and so what I'm going to do with this salty briny water is I'm going to top each of them off. And as you can see, you want to leave 1 inch of room at the top. And the reason for leaving 1 inch of room at the top is so that it doesn't bubble over. When this starts fermenting, it actually forms little bubbles, kind of like when you form a soda. It forms little bubbles, and it can totally bubble over if you have too much liquid in there. So I'm making sure that everything is very secure in here. The reason why I like to also top it off instead of condensing it into fewer bottles is I like to form extra juice. So when this ferments, it's forming extra ferment in this juice, and it makes for great salad dressings. Or just a little elixir in the morning, or if you don't feel so well, you can just take a couple of tablespoons of this juice. And then you want to wipe them all off. So all of these are ready to go and going to ferment. And you want to store it in a cooler place in your house to ferment it. If it ferments too fast, it doesn't taste so great, so you want to let it sit for maybe, well, since this has got whey in it, it's probably going to take a little bit shorter to ferment. It probably take about 3 days to ferment. If you don't use a culture like whey, and you just use 2 tablespoons of salt, it's probably going to take a lot longer to ferment. It'll probably be around 5 days or even 6 days. What you can do is open it up, take a very, very clean spoon, taste that liquid. If it tastes horribly salty, leave it to ferment more. If it's starting to become a little tart, you'll taste, it's starting to become more like sauerkraut. I think I'm going to put it in the fridge. Okay, how you determine whether your sauerkraut is ready or not, I just want to show you what the fermentation process looks like. If you look really close to this, you can see there's the liquid, there's the fermentation weight, and here is like little bubbles inside your sauerkraut. And as you can see right here, that's pressurized, so there's gas in here. And if I open it up, you can see how these little bubbles come up like that. And then you'll open it up and you'll taste, and you can see the bubbles coming up like right there. Still fermenting in there. And you're going to taste this liquid, and you're going to determine whether it is the right sourness for you, the right saltiness for you, and when it's ready, you can put it in the fridge. So this is the finished product. If you look really nice and close to it, you can see that there's little bubbles in there. And so, to get it out, get a little fork, and you take your little stone back up again, that's how you get it out. And now the sauerkraut's ready to be used. You can see that extra juice on there. You're going to have in the morning. It's great to start your day with. And then sauerkraut for whatever dish you want to put it in. On a salad, on a sandwich, just like that, on some sausage. It's your pick. Smakelijk eten!